mum back in England phones me up and says, "What do you want for Christmas?" The usual. And I said, "You know what? Why don't you get me a beer making kit?" So this is where things sort of started. I might have had one or two too many. I was walking, by the way, so that's sort of safe. And I came up with the drunken stumble bum of we should start a beer company. And I'm the sort of the loud, rude one. He's the intelligent, polite one. We printed up basically produced our first batch through with him. And our distributor basically picked it all up from us, sold it out within about 3 weeks or something. So completely from scratch, sold it out. So in 3 weeks, we went from 0 to about 100 accounts. The breweries that have much bigger production space and much smaller taproom, I feel are the ones that are in much more trouble. Because, as we all know, your margins are so much better in a taproom than they are from a distribution point. They have this conveyor belt oven and empanadas. So when I saw this, my little light bulb went off in my head and thinking, hang on, one person can operate this food thing. So I came up with a darts league. So every Monday, I'm guaranteed 40 to 50 people who come in and like to drink beer. I'd say 90% of our purchases are through email marketing, not from social media.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to welcome you to another episode of the Beverage Biz Podcast. We have a very special guest today. Nick, the co-founder of Medford Brewing, which is a craft brewery out of Medford, Massachusetts, is with us today. So Nick, welcome to the show. Thrilled to have you here today.
Hi Steve, yeah, thank you very much for having us. It's nice to talk beer with someone who, unlike my wife, who tells me off for talking about it too much, who's someone who actually might be interested in what we've got to say.
Very interested in what you have to say. So yeah, to kick things off, why don't you tell us about, who you are, your background, and how you got into the brewery industry?
Certainly, yeah. So my background was really all in sales management. I actually left London, moved to LA, started a language education magazine, worked in the publishing industry. The internet, our friend and foe, then destroyed publishing entirely, as I was basically managing newspapers all over the place. Then moved from California to Massachusetts. And basically when I was there, I did a stint at PayPal where I'm basically in the technology side, then became a chief revenue officer of a media company, and then kind of got a bit disillusioned and started to do some consulting. But whilst I was the chief revenue officer, I used to drive past a homebrew store every single day, well, actually twice a day, to and from work. And my mum back in England phones me up and says, what do you want for Christmas? The usual. And my usual expenses, I don't know, I have no idea. And I said, you know what? Why don't you get me a beer making kit? So this is where things sort of started. And so I basically bought this beer making kit, which she still hasn't paid me back for, by the way. But so I buy this kit, and it's all very simple stuff. I open this tin, pour it into some water, and this, that, and the other. And I kind of got a bit into that. I was kind of enjoying that. And then I thought, again, having small children as well, the joy of home brewing is you make 40 pints at a time, which is brilliant. So you don't have to go to the beer shop to get yourself some beer. It's there, it's done. So that was quite fun. And then so I started with basically the recipes and the little boxes from the homebrew store, which was great fun. And then I sort of said, okay, well, let's start really honing it down to make my own go-to beer, the beer that I really like to do. So I dabbled with this, that, and the other, and started experimenting with hops and doing all that sort of stuff. So that's how I sort of started. But then what actually happened was my business partner, his daughter and my daughter both played soccer together. And they basically sort of in local club, town soccer, and for the high school as well. And what happened was he'd invite basically the parents and his children's friends to his house for a homebrew beer party every Halloween. So we're actually coming up to our 10-year anniversary, literally almost around the corner.
Nice.
And what he did was he basically plied us all with this amazingly good pumpkin beer, which I might have had one or two too many. I was walking, by the way, so that's sort of safe. And I came up with the drunken stumble bum of we should start a beer company. It'd be a really good idea. And his sort of comment was, well, I don't know. I mean, he's an English teacher and very much sort of quite different. We're very yin and yang in that side of things. And I'm the sort of the loud, rude one. He's the intelligent, polite one. And so I said, well, let's start it up because I mean, he was a much more accomplished brewer than I was. He was in all the basically lots of competitions he won, different medals. He was in the Boston Wort group as well, so he was very involved in the whole community. And I was just basically more this salesman clown who sort of thought, okay, this is a bit of a laugh, let's do it for fun. So I basically talked him into us starting a beer company together. And so that's how things initially then started. Now, we didn't have any money, any premises or anything else. So we then said, all right, well, we need to, and basically we set aside some cash, right, for our first big brew that we can do. And interestingly, so you're searching around, well, how do you get started? And people say, well, they start knocking on doors of liquor stores and stuff, do you want to try my products? And thought, well, that's one option, but let's go a bit deeper to start with. So and I'm going to jump around a little bit here, but whilst this was going on, so we were essentially at this stage, we were a Facebook page and a website. That's all we were. So basically, it was just smoke and mirrors. It was a bit comedic, really. And I get a call from there's a university in Northeastern University, and they said, we'd love you to come and talk to our alumni about your starting up a beer company. And we've also got Drew from another beer company, Mayflower Brewing, and we've also got this other guy who's one of the founders of Down East Cider. So I thought, okay. Of course, I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, these people already know what they're doing. They've got real companies. And here I'm a Facebook page and a website. No products out or anything. Complete, charlatan. It's terrible, isn't it? So in this meeting, this thing, and there's a lot of Q&A, and I just talk about the social media marketing side of things because marketing is also a big part of my background. And one of the guys who was there, his family owned a label company. So he gave me his package. He's sat there politely throughout the whole thing and gave us all his little folder with some samples. And of course, my little grey box starts ticking. I think, hang on a minute. And I'm very friendly and chat away this guy. And I said, look, we're a bit early. I said, but I tell you what, any chance you could print us off some sample labels and see how they look? So I got busy working on some design things. I was traveling a fair amount for my real job as well. So I'd be sitting on a plane with my laptop trying to design logo ideas and this, that, and the other and label things. And thankfully, my wife is a very talented artist who actually repairs all the bad things that I do. And as a result, so we actually then created 2 labels. So I then reached out to my new label friend and said, yeah, can you do some samples of these labels? So basically for bottles and then for cans. So we then had homebrew beer, and I stuck these professional labels on the homebrew. I did some photo shoots so that was actually the bottles of beer. There's a 12-ounce cider can called Record League, which was the perfect size can for these labels as well. So I stuck our labels around these cans as well. So did a little photo shoot with this stuff. And I just started reaching out to local distributors. And by weird chance, and so I bring along some bottles of our beer. This is our latest beer. Crack them open. This is our IPA and this is our American Pale Ale. What do you think? And we secured a distributor. He said, this is great. And I thought, okay, brilliant. He said, how much, when can we get some? I said, all right, well, we'll get some in some cans. So the next mission, having just sort of somehow persuaded this distributor to sell us from homebrew in a bottle with a dodgy label. So I then found this other, basically another brewery who just starting up, really nice guy, actually, Rob up at Great North Ale Works in Manchester, New Hampshire. And we had a chat with Rob, and he was sort of, interestingly, back then, every brewer I reached out to contract brew basically blanked us, ignored us, said no. He was the only one at the time. Now, of course, they're banging at your door like there's no tomorrow. But he was the only one who was actually saying, yeah, we can do some things with you. So we basically produced our first batch through with him. And our distributor basically picked it all up from us, sold it out within about 3 weeks or something. Wow. So completely from scratch, sold it out. So in 3 weeks, we went from 0 to about 100 accounts. Then from there, it then sort of grew, and we basically grew to the stage with them where we were purely contracting, no brick and mortar store. So I still felt like a bit of a fraud on the whole thing as well. But and then so we built up to a certain point where we actually were too big really for this small distributor to really manage us. And they were focusing on some wine as well. So, and it was in very, very good terms. We said, all right, well, let's just sort of cut ties now. As friends, we can carry on. If you grow to a stage where you can work again, love to work with you again, but perhaps we should do something else. So we then literally from there we jumped to one of the top 5 distributors in Massachusetts, who took us on with great gusto, and all the meetings of you've got to promise me this and promise me that, and we're of course just thinking, okay, yes, totally out of my depth here, don't know what I'm doing, just but we've managed to secure this big distributor from who knows where. And they took us to about 250 or so locations. Things were going pretty well with them overall. And then what happened was the evil fate of the distributor, which is why I haven't used their name for very many reasons. And basically their reps stopped talking about our products. And so with this, so what happened to me was I said, well, look, one of my biggest customers who his daughter was in the same class as my son at school. We're quite good friends. He owned a couple of, actually 3 restaurants. And, we'd actually made a special signature beer for his charity one stage. So we were good friends. And so we had a new sour that came out. And I said, Jim, mate, what's the scoop? You didn't buy my sour. You normally buy everything. What's happening? Did we offend you somehow? And he said, well, hang on a minute. Phones up his bar manager, said, what's going on? Why don't you buy their beer? And he said, well, their sales rep didn't even mention it.
Wow.
So at this stage, I think, all right, my biggest customer, pretty much, for draft anyway, and they're not even mentioning it. So I call up my contact and said, look, I used to manage sales teams. I've managed up to about 100 people in the past, from 4 teams to much bigger teams. I said, look, can we have a little chat about your sales rep who's not really pushing our products? And so, it's a bit distressing. We're trying to grow and build, and this is happening. And then I basically had this snub sort of, well, no, we're not going to do anything about it. They have their things. They've got their goals and their things they've got to hit. So that's how they're going to focus. So our relationship kind of pitted out a little bit there, where we actually ended up basically parting ways with them. And we sort of had this, and then the term I think we used was we'll put everything on pause for a bit, which was 3 years ago now. Which was an interesting situation, but
I don't blame you.
yeah, it was just very sort of, you're not really working for us here, and you ask me to do things and we do things, and at least in response, could you at least have your people just mention our products? That's all we're looking for. Because we'd go on ride-alongs with them, with their reps directly, and I'd open 10 accounts in a day, just from going on these ride-alongs. So it was like the old term, shooting fish in a barrel. Not that I know what that means, but it was one of those really sort of, this is so easy. Why don't they do this all the time? But anyway, so that was all going on. And then we'd actually did some crowdfunding. We raised some cash as well. And so then it was, all right, we need to find our own brick and mortar store now. And this was all kicking off around COVID time. And then what happened was we found one spot. We thought this will work, and there was an existing restaurant in the building. And then I knew the restaurant owner, and we said, well, perhaps we could share the kitchen. So you can operate the kitchen, and you can do feed food to my customers, and obviously for yourself as well. You keep that. We'll take a small slice of that action, but the rest is your money. That was the grand plan. This great plan. Of course, sadly, that restaurateur then got shut down by the feds for not paying their taxes. But luckily we actually decided not to go into that building, because it was literally just when COVID had started off.
Okay.
And so COVID was in full speed here, and of course the contractor was also sort of, no, we need to get started now. Whilst we get the materials, we get it all going. And I'm sort of going, no, we want to slow down here, not accelerate. We don't know how long this thing's going to last here.
Right.
And he was all, oh no, it's going to be a month. Again, if I listened to this contractor, we'd have been out of business, basically. So we battened down the hatches for basically a year or two, and then just kept our eyes open for the right location. And then we found our now location, which was a car repair shop, I think like many breweries have. So we have the instant car, basically garage doors, basically two garage doors. So then we opened the tap room.
Wow, man. It's quite a journey. A lot to unpack there.
There was an awful lot, yes. It was well, we were also basically just doing it as a side hustle at the time as well. So I was working full time. My business partner, who's the head brewer, he still works full time actually as a teacher.
Okay.
And then I basically run and manage everything else. So our general deal is that I do the legal work, the basically admin work, the HR work, run the tap room, everything. And his job is the beer, and
Make
that's
really good beer.
just make good beer. That's all we need from you. Make good beer.
Yeah. Well, I think that's in the brewery space, it seems like you need a co-founder. I don't think I've ever seen a brewery where it's just one person doing everything. It's like you need someone who just is amazing at making beer and then somebody to do everything else, all the business side of it.
I think you were right, and I think interestingly, I know of a few brewers, quite a few around here that have recently gone out of business, and that's a spat that's been going on for a while around here. But interestingly, what I saw, and I did a little bit of consulting at a couple of breweries as well, just for to help them out with they're in a bit of a financial pickle. Just okay, well let's reorganize your finances here. Let's see what we can do to help you get back on track. And the biggest problem, the issue I saw was actually it was the breweries that were in trouble were the ones that their head brewer was also the person who was running the whole place. And so they didn't put the business hat on, which is it takes you 5 minutes to do something extra. You drive out and do that. You don't get Instacart to deliver it to you. It's knowing where you shouldn't spend money, when you need to be frugal, where you need to pay someone a few days late to keep the balance going where you are. That a lot of times I actually saw, and I've seen, and my experience has been that a lot of times that I suppose I know that way of doing business isn't necessarily what a lot of people who aren't more business minded how they actually think. If that kind of makes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so would you say, because obviously the brewery industry is struggling quite a bit right now. We were talking about that a little bit before the podcast. Would you say that that's the main reason that a lot of breweries are struggling, or do you think it's more external factors such as people don't drink as much alcohol anymore, and there's a lot of financial headwinds facing the brewery space? So basically, the question is, do you think this is, for a lot of breweries out there who are struggling, is it more self-inflicted, or are there just obstacles out there that are seemingly impossible to overcome for a lot of breweries?
I think it's a blend of the two. And I feel what's happened is, again, we were lucky-ish in some ways with with our location, which is not very big. Our building is 2,500 square feet. But where we live, real estate is so expensive that we couldn't even contemplate getting a warehouse sort of size of anything, because it is just so expensive. And rents are insanely high as well, where we're in this whole area that we're in. And so jumping back to this, so rents are one big issue with why people are going out, and that's not really the brewery's fault or an individual's owner's fault. We found basically said rents where the landlords are jacking up the prices, and they're pricing basically the rental. And because what's happening is where we are, it's becoming easier for someone to take their building and turn it into apartments or condos, and then make 10 times the money that they would as a commercial space.
Right.
So there's 5 breweries in this whole area around here that I know that went down because their landlords wouldn't renew their leases for doing that exact same purpose.
Wow.
One of the other ones I'd say, the bigger factors is, and this is on the timing, which is the breweries that have much bigger production space and much smaller taproom, I feel are the ones that are in much more trouble.
I'd
Because
agree. Yeah.
as we all know, your margins are so much better in a tap room than they are from a distribution point standpoint.
Yep.
Especially when you got your especially if I mean, one of the other things we had with distribution before was, if some liquor store is taking a 10 drop, but that's their minimum they'll be delivered, but they only had 9, then the crafty sales would say, "Well, just throw one of these in." They never plan to sell.
Mhm.
And the number of times we got a returned full case from somewhere that didn't seem to sell a single beer, single
Mm.
4-pack. You think, well, that's a bit strange, but there we go. So I think you've got the companies that they've got far too much production space and not
Mhm.
enough taproom space. I don't think anyone could have seen how the industry has slowed down in liquor stores.
Yeah.
I know here, I mean, Massachusetts around here, they've been dropping 30% year on year.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, we barely distribute at all now. We just do a little bit of self-distribute, microscopic amount. There's about 3 or 4 restaurants we will distribute to, and that's about it.
And it's a totally different, I mean, distribution was the game 10 years ago. It felt like every single brewery, that was their playbook to, grow their business and get the name out there was distribution. And now it's like the model has completely flipped and it's just a taproom focus for 99% of the breweries I talk to, at least now. So it's, if you didn't go in with that approach in mind, which most of these breweries didn't, they set themselves up for a big distribution play, then it's what do you do? It's hard.
And it is, and I think a lot of things. We're lucky. We're not in a full foot traffic area, but I'm in a reasonably good foot traffic area.
Mhm.
There's a commuter rail station 10 less than 2 minutes walk from our building.
Mhm.
Where I wish there were more people that have a beer after work than there are, but that's the other thing, where a lot of breweries, I think, geographically, it's all about location now.
Yeah.
And if you're in a high foot traffic area, you're going to be more likely to be successful. I think the traveling to the warehouse, basically the industrial area, to this warehouse, very cool and funky warehouse, but I feel that's dying out a lot.
Yeah. I
And I
agree.
think interesting what you were saying as well is because the availability of craft beer has come so much easier for bars and restaurants now
Mhm.
that they've all got a big lineup.
Yeah.
So, you go to a restaurant or bar now and they'll have 10 different craft beers from breweries all over the place, where perhaps in the past there wasn't so much availability there.
Yeah.
So I think you've got a blend of these things that are happening. And alcohol consumption going down. Where we are here, I was blaming that on the weed because
Yeah.
marijuana is legal here now in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
and the THC infused drinks, that market seems to be growing.
Mhm.
So your younger people are going to basically, let's have a can of weed versus a can of beer
Yep.
because they need one can of weed, and then that's like having 3 or 4 beers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that was tough to see coming as well. It's not only is alcohol consumption decreasing, but people are just replacing it with this other substance, which to me, if you told me that 10 years ago, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because it seems like it's a totally different effect on your body. And
Mm.
it's, I'd imagine, if you want to be social, you go and drink a beer. If you want to go sit on your couch, you go and drink a weed drink, but people do, drink them when they're out and about. Um, so yeah, it feels like the model overall. It's almost kind of just becoming more of a restaurant model. It's like you have to be like a restaurant with good craft beer to be successful and follow all the basic principles of a restaurant, like good location. You have to have really good food because people want to go somewhere and stay a while, and they don't want to like pop around to different spots. Um, so yeah, just totally different playbook than it was 10 years ago. It's fascinating.
And I think so. Where we are, there are no actual bars in Medford, our city here. They're only restaurants. And there was a law where you had to serve food with alcohol,
Hmm.
which still stands now. I think legally they only have to two beverages before you then purchase food.
Mm.
We, as the first and only real brewery in Medford, we didn't need to serve food. So for our first year or so, we didn't do any at all. But when I jump back to, we're talking about businesses being successful, and so we're on the growth. We're still growing, so I can't say we're successful yet. But I then actually had this whole thought. Well, okay, food. People are bringing their takeaway food all the time, just fine. It's a bit annoying. You've got to pick up someone's pizza on the floor. Think, really? But anyway, you couldn't pick up your kids' Cheerios? Come on. Anyway, you do that at your own house. So what we did was and my daughter's at university up in New Orleans, and we basically go up there quite often. And we went to this place called Empanada. And it was a lovely little spot. There's a few of these spots, and they have this conveyor belt oven and empanadas. And you basically go there, I'll do this, these different flavors. And one person's working there. They put them on a little metal tray, stick on the conveyor belt. 10 minutes later, bing, they basically, here you go, done. So, and again, this is going back to, I said, the successful options and other things. All right, how do you keep your costs down? So when I saw this, my little light bulb went off in my head and thinking, hang on, one person can operate this food thing. It's on a conveyor belt, so it's not going to stay in an oven and get burnt. You have to check it, is it cooked or not? Where is it? You put it straight through, ding, and when it's done, it's ours 10.5 minutes later from one end to the other. If it comes out the end and you don't grab the food for a couple of minutes, it's not going to be fine because it's still piping hot. But one person can work behind the bar and serve food at the same time. And by doing this, you then start serving food, but without the food preparation. So that was one of the things actually you mentioned food. And so I thought, well, empanadas, they're a bit different. It's not your average everyday food you come across. So I think there's that sort of ooh factor. And so they're baked fresh. So we buy them from the local restaurant supply store. And that was a fun one because I actually taste tested about 6 different locally made ones with my customers, and everyone said the ones from the restaurant supply store are the best ones.
Really?
I didn't tell them where they were from, which was that was a no-brainer. Half the price of the other ones. Brilliant.
Perfect.
It is. But that again was actually, when we talk about with the business side of it, that was, so we now, and the game plan for that was, you have your first pint, you go up to the bar to order your second one, you go, oh, I fancy some food. The 10.5 minutes was very strategic timing for the oven, which took 63 empanadas to perfect his timing, by the way. And I don't eat empanadas anymore. I went to the place we eat a lot.
Too many empanadas.
Just too many. But the plan was, so you order your second beer and you go, oh, let me get a snack. So we're not expensive for the food. Order your empanadas. 10.5 minutes later, which approximately on your second beer should put you 2/3 of the way through it.
You need another beer with your food.
You pick up your food when the little buzzer goes off, and then you need to order your third beer.
Oh, it's genius.
If it really works, it would be, yes.
So does it work, or?
No, I don't really get the extra third beer, but we do still get the purchasing.
Well, my question would be, what does the sales process look like when you're giving them the food? Is there like a line that you give people, like, hey, you need a refill with this, or is it just kind of you?
Not usually, because sadly, the actual pickup is more, we give them a buzzer because we don't do table service or anything. So this is a buzzer. You got to go up to the bar, and normally, so we're relatively busy at this stage. There's not a lot of chat time versus, but quite often people, they will actually perhaps order a second beverage, but it never worked out the way I really planned it, which was on that pickup, I would like my third beer.
Maybe you need to lower the heat of the conveyor belt and extend the time, give them more time to finish the second beer.
I think that might be a good idea. 10.5 to 11 minutes. We can see if that increases.
Gotta keep testing.
I have to hire someone to try the empanadas, but yes.
That is a good example of what you were talking about before, though, because I think a lot of brewery owners, you're right, probably don't think that way. I think people just hear they need to add a kitchen and then they immediately assume, okay, I need to invest, 50 or 100,000 or however much it is to build out a full in-house kitchen with a staff and a chef. And there are ways to do it that don't require you to, be a Michelin star or Michelin rated restaurant,
Yeah.
so that's a good way to do it.
Well, that was my thought. I said, and I said we have zero waste
Hmm.
because we take them from frozen, we're defrosting them in our fridge
Hmm.
every morning. Basically, I'll put them in there. They can be in the fridge for 3 days without any issues whatsoever. I mean, I've done all the little tab testing of all of these things.
Hmm.
They don't normally last that long in the fridge.
Hmm.
But as a result, said so, and yeah, we know it can be a slow week. We just don't take as many out of the freezer into the fridge. So instead, you have zero waste. You don't have to hire extra staff.
Hmm.
The bar staff make more money because then they get food tip on top of beer tip.
Right.
That again is some people still do the dollar a beer tip versus the 20% tip.
Hmm.
But adding that food, then they're actually getting better tips. So the staff prefer it, like it. And so basically everyone wins.
Man, I love it. That's genius.
It's
So what are some of the other things, like if you had to, kind of pinpoint, I think you mentioned before some of just financial elements in general to running a brewery, but what are some of the things that you see other brewery owners do in your consulting experience with them that are just big mistakes in the industry that are costing people money and pushing more people out of business?
Well, as I said, I think the biggest one is it's equipment.
Mhm.
And it's when people sort of say, you should basically start up planning for your build as if your expansion as if you already expanded.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's one that I did a fair amount of time with that said they sadly didn't survive. And they had that 490 tanks that
Mm.
they used one of them once.
Yeah.
And
Well, and that's another example too, that maybe that advice made sense 10 years ago when distribution was a larger play and the market was less competitive and it was easier to expand on that side of things. But today it's like if you're just running a tap room, what do you need that big of a system for?
no, exactly. And I think it's those sort of things, or let's get the new centrifuge and all this sort of stuff. And it's no, save your $100,000. Don't do that. You don't need that.
Yeah.
Some of these sort of things and I think that's one of the big. And it was, I think, being conscious of cost.
Hmm.
That I think is the number one, the biggest thing I would say, which is that it's overhead, height, I mean, for everything, overhead and cost conscious.
Mm.
And it is, and that's really where, again, in my mind of things, I mean, said I'm very strict with all right, this is what we're doing, this we're spending this, we've got some spare money for that, not for
Mhm.
this, stop doing that, we're not doing that. That didn't work, let's not do it again. And I get a bit of bad press from my team every now and then for some of this stuff, but by having this, I said actually I think one of my startup world, the favorite of those is fail fast.
Mhm.
And so I think by trying these things, for example, we had a wreath making event at the brewery, and I was really. We made absolutely no money. There's someone else basically. We were filled. There was so much glitter on the floor. It took weeks of my mopping to get rid of it, and I might have made $50 if that. Which really for a day's work anyway. So these are the things they say. Well, right, we're never doing that again.
Mhm.
And really sticking with them, knowing these things, all right, or this specific type of beer didn't sell well. Well, let's not make it again.
Right.
Even though, well, I really like that beer. Yes, you, master brewer, love that beer, but sadly, the rest of the world does not. So let's not make. Why don't you just make a small batch? I've got my home brew kit. I can make you 40 pints of it. And we'll save the system for things where actually people want to drink.
Right. So
Uh,
go you mentioned the wreath night was a big flop. What are some of the types of events that you've found to be successful that you would repeat?
one of my well, we so my favorite one actually is darts.
Mm.
There's a guy who owned a restaurant down literally around the corner from us. He's moved on to another restaurant now. And he was very keen saying, "You've got to be open on Mondays. You've got to be open on Mondays. Do be open on Mondays." And I said, "All right, well, but no one goes out on a Monday. That's
Mhm.
that's dry. People don't really drink much on Mondays. It's crap 'cause
Yeah.
it's the work week." And he said, "No, you got to do it. If we both stay open on Mondays, the tide will rise and everyone will get there." So I thought, all right, fine. I'll give it a whirl. Again, having almost zero hospitality in knowledge or experience up until I opened this place.
Mhm.
Lo and behold, yeah, I was basically spending my time playing Candy Crush on my telephone and talking to myself, um, versus actually having any customers.
Uh-huh.
So, well, this obviously doesn't work. So I then thought, all right, what's going to draw people in? What can we do that's going to bring people in on a regular basis that we can utilize this, and add on it? So that was when I first starting my thinking. Then I started thinking, all right, what can we draw people in where they want to drink beer as well? We've got plenty of people who want to come and do things that aren't very beer drinking centric. So,
Mhm.
so that's no help to anyone. So I came up with a darts league.
Mhm.
Now, every Monday, I put up 4 dartboards. I moved half the tables out of our place and I put them in our storeroom. I moved all the chairs. I set up 4 dartboards, 4 mats, 4 lights, and we have a darts league.
Mhm.
They play every single Monday. It's not gigantic, but we're not gigantic. But we have 12 teams. So every Monday, I'm guaranteed 40 to 50 people who come in and like to drink beer.
Nice.
And
That's great.
it's been one of those things so I just know Monday's the safest night. I know we're going to do all right. There's no question. If the weather's crap, people still come and play because it's
Yeah.
their darts league. Um, that was
Hmm.
one. That was my best feather of my cap, I think. We
Huh.
do a trivia on a Tuesday, but that's a dice roll. Sometimes we'll get 20 teams. Sometimes we'll get 8.
Yeah.
But that's been pretty strong for us. And then the other one actually is, although we do the food, is Friday food pop-ups.
Hmm.
So we also, and I get a bit of flack for this as well, but we've got a pretty strict-ish 21 after 6 p.m. policy.
Mhm.
And we love the baby brigade. They're great. They come in their strollers, but sadly, babies don't drink much beer. And it's slightly frowned upon when dads say, "Here, I have your first drink." No, not in public. So and there was the running around and the clowning that happened. So we basically came with
Yeah.
this rule, which was, all right, after 6 p.m., we won't allow anyone in under 21. If
Hmm.
you're already in with your kiddos, that's fine, but they have to stay at their table and be 100% basically supervised.
Yeah.
There's no off and wandering around and then the kids running around and jumping in the brewing section and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you adhere to that, you can stay. If your kid's not at the table and running around, we'll ask you to leave.
Hmm.
So, and the flacking off that was incredible. Anyway, but what we do on a Friday when we'll do food pop-ups. So we have local restaurants are going to come and do a food pop-up. So we turn our oven off, and we do these food pop-ups. And we actually didn't have it family friendly until 8 p.m.
Hmm.
So that we get a pretty good heavy boost on a Friday, because of having the extra. It's that special time when they can come in with their families for a little bit later than they can usually.
Yeah. Hmm.
So those have been pretty successful ones. We've done a few things which are ticketed events, which are basically beer tastings with the head brewer. We do those in the winter, the quiet months where you question, will we survive next month?
Yeah.
We're just going to stay like this. We won't be around for long. Thankfully, it is seasonal, but that's another. So beer tasting, those have been pretty good. But the more interesting one is our failures.
Hmm.
So we're quite into the live music side of it. My business partner is a musician. He's actually the poet laureate for the city of Medford as well.
I read that in an article about you guys.
Yeah, which is it's big doings if you're into the poet world. But and so again, so we have a lot of these things. A lot of our friends in the music side of things, and we found that music has never really been a big draw.
I hear a lot of breweries say that, which is fascinating. Because you would think, live music, drinks, and beer makes sense to go together, but I guess
It,
not.
it, it was, and it was the easiest. Oh, this is going to be an absolute win here. Brilliant. Music on a Thursday.
Mhm.
And no, absolute dud. And and it's half the time they're just playing to them. It's like we're being paid to practice.
Yeah.
So, which isn't well, I could do that. I could teach myself to play the guitar and pay myself instead, couldn't I?
Yeah.
So that was one. Yeah, that was definitely the music is we've never managed to crack that fully.
I think
Although, sorry.
live music, I think it needs to be a really good band that people, they have a reputation in the area and people kind of follow them and they keep their eye out for where they're playing. But if it's just, some random band, it's not going to draw a crowd because nobody knows them.
No, and it's been very evident. But even local bands, we thought, okay, yeah, there's so some of them is the one-off element, and we just do okay with some of those, but the
Mhm.
majority of them not so much.
Yeah.
Um, uh, we did karaoke for a little bit, but then that stopped pretty abruptly because we got basically so yeah, it's all right, but the cost for doing the rights and stuff for that just outweighed any financial benefit for trying to do karaoke for 1 month, one evening a month,
Yeah.
when you have to then basically pay all the rights fees as well.
Yeah.
So we basically had to kill that. When I just spoke to my lawyer, who said no, even though the website for the karaoke said, oh yes, oh that's all covered, and he said, well, I'm not totally sure it is. I said, all right, well it's done then. We're not doing that again.
Yeah. Not
No,
worth the risk.
that's not
Well,
happening.
I like what you said before about kind of trying to find more beer centric events because I think that part gets missed with a lot of brewery owners, at least that I see. Like, they'll do goat yoga at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, and it's like, well, maybe that gets people in the door and it's a cool event, but are these like women doing yoga with goats drinking a beer at 10 a.m. on a Saturday after their yoga session? I don't think so.
Having a nice double bock after their hot yoga for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so I think that part gets missed. And the Dart League is perfect. That makes it a lot of sense. Um, but yeah, some of these like craft events where people are going and, making wreaths or
Oh,
just,
absolutely awful. Yeah.
the sip and paint or whatever
Oh,
other
we, we,
events.
we had one which was game night with a walking magician, or basically, or with a wizard. And it's sort of, we had two people turn up to game night with a wizard.
Oh gosh.
Which is-
Oh, brutal.
yeah, that was definitely won't be repeating that one. But
Well, so I have a ton of questions to ask you and not much time, so I'm going to dive into the big ones.
yeah,
Um, I would love to. We talked about events and we talked about how you guys recently opened the tap room a couple of years ago, and the smart decisions you have to make to keep a tap room open. I always love to dive into the marketing side of things. What are you guys doing from a marketing standpoint, if anything, and how do you tell people about these events and new beer releases and stuff like that, and bring them into the tap room?
so we have a few. We are quite social media centric. We do through Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Threads, and recently we've been dabbling in the TikTok,
Mhm.
which is quite amusing actually. But that's I'll get to that another time. The challenge with my daughter for so who gets more viewers for their TikTok video. Sadly, I don't often win, but I I try hard. Um, and then so that we do lots of social media. I post basically every day on all different platforms. We do a through our events. Basically, we do a email blast once a week as well to our list of all the events we've got coming up for the next 2 weeks. We also, with our POS system, we use Square,
Mhm.
and that has a marketing element in it as well. So we have another 2,500 of our customers that we can do. We email through there as well.
Nice.
So that's most of the stuff that we're doing. I've looked at other things, but I haven't really found anything that's really worked too well overall on the marketing side. But then, and we do some of the sponsorship things as well here and there. again, to get the name out. So, there's a big Medford run Medford. So we supply the beer for that for free,
Nice.
but our logos are everywhere. And then this summer, I did 4 free concerts in Medford Square, where we had our beer trailer, we had a food truck, and we had some bands playing. And so a lot of it was just getting the name out, getting out there.
Yeah, just get in front of people.
But yes, and then recently, actually, with the change of law with the farmers market, so we've been selling there as well, some cans, which again, you don't really make much money on doing that, but it's just more so more people see it.
Got
Um,
it. Yep.
and another one is there's a run club comes out on a Sunday, so we sponsor their shirts, so our logos on the back of the shirts says "Follow me for the beer,"
Yeah.
so that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much what we do. I can't think of any that's about it.
Okay, so you guys are pretty heavily involved in the community, it sounds like, and you're active on social. And then kudos to you, because most people I talk to do not do this, but you are keeping up with email marketing, which is a good thing.
It is. Well, and I found that, especially for any ticketed event things we're doing, it's the key to success. My darts league, for example, I get, obviously it's an email thing for signups for darts league. We do the beers with the brewer. Again, that's all email marketing. There's a bit, but I'd say 90% of our purchases are through email marketing, not through social media.
Wow. One thing you might want to try, if you get into meta advertising, Facebook and Instagram ads, there's a certain way that you have to set this up. There's certain like settings that you select in Facebook and Instagram advertising. But if you're running ticketed events, you can drive traffic right to the ticketed page. And then if you use, it's called a sales objective campaign on Facebook and Instagram. We've had a lot of success selling tickets that way for different types of events. So you could try that as well.
Yes, although the weird thing is, perhaps I shouldn't say this, but Facebook won't let me advertise with them anymore.
Oh, no.
We've got, between the Instagram and Facebook, there's probably about 6,000 followers in total, which is not huge, but it's healthy enough. I'm actually sent checks by Meta every month for my $5.80 for whatever we posted. So they send me money as well as I like to wind my children up as I'm a paid influencer. Sadly, it's enough to buy half a coffee a week, a month or something. But they won't let me actually spend any money.
Interesting.
I think someone somewhere might have made some competitor, someone made some complaint or something, because I couldn't find any way to even actually how to get off their "you can't spend any money" list.
Interesting. Is it your profile or your face, like your brand's Facebook page that's blocked?
Well, it's all connected through to me. So I'm not sure if I could do it separately. I'll have to look into that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be too complicated to get into for the purpose of this podcast. But if you fix that and you figure out how to run ads, I would try that, the sales objective campaign on Meta ads, because you could probably get a lot more ticket sales. And that way you don't have to just rely on people that are on your email list already. You can go after traffic.
No, I'd love to. Said I used to spend quite a fair amount of money with it. And then actually, I did a consulting gig, and I met this guy who was into the websites basically to make money out of traffic, and he taught me a few things and I think it was this whole thing of we uploaded basically some profile things, external profiles that you used to be able to do and you can't do anymore. So we did some crazy targeting through Facebook for a while, and then they stopped you being allowed to do that, I believe.
Yeah, they're always changing the rules on us.
Yes, but yeah.
Well, I would love to keep going all day. This has been an awesome podcast. I do have to wrap it up, but before we go, I want to just give you a shout out. Where can people find out about Medford Brewing Company if they live in the area? How can they come visit you, and where should they follow you on social? What are all the ways people can connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. So our physical address is 30 Harvard Avenue in Medford, which is actually West Medford. It's literally 2 minutes walk from the commuter rail station. mbrewing.com is our URL, so you can check out our website, which has all of our events, what's happening. So we're also Medford Brewing on Instagram, on Facebook, on X, Blue Sky, Threads,
All of them.
all the ones we can, and Twitter. No, sorry, not Twitter, and TikTok as well, which is, of course, the last video I did of myself. My mum told me off for not smiling, but there we are. I got 1,500 views, mother, but I didn't smile apparently. So
we'll be keeping an eye out for the next video.
telling me off for not smiling. Smile more, for God's sakes.
Well, Nick, this has been awesome. I really appreciate your time today. I think this was a great episode. You dropped a lot of nuggets of wisdom for all the other brewery owners out there. And thanks again. We'll catch up soon.
My pleasure, Steve. Lovely to meet you, and thank you for having us.